as it is, there's still quite a few, but...
Yeah. What's like every year, it's really fun to find out what's going to be the thing this year at Mazer Cup, because there's always something. Like, what was it? Year before last, it was currants. Last year, it was peppers.
It was peppers like 4 years ago. Peppers are not new, at least not in terms of the thing. Bouchets have been really popular lately. I haven't seen a lot.
And then they got the bouchets. Yeah, that'll probably be this year. I've got one boucher. It's still sitting on a shelf. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, you got a couple of bouchets. The coffee caramel boucher mead in the traditional sweets.
Yeah, that one's upstairs. I did make that one. It turned out really well. I was very happy with it.
I like the sound of that one.
I don't cook those types. Any of them that I say caramelized, I'm not bouchering them actually. I'm boiling them, but just not till they're brown.
Yeah.
I get them to a nice deep caramel color and then call it good.
Yeah. Well, and what constitutes the right boucher level is not something that's set in stone. It's a personal preference thing. So unless somebody defines what boucher means.
True.
It's going to depend on the particular honey too.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
And also whether you do all of it or some of it, or what percentage of honey you do and how dark you do it. It's all going to depend on your recipe.
That's very true. I've seen people that use all the honey is caramelized, and others that only a portion of the honey is caramelized, and it's because of what they're looking for in terms of their honey flavor combination.
Oh.
So, chocolate bacon maple sweet boucher size. Now there's that one that is never going to fit into any size or subcategory that they create. Just saying.
That one's flat out experimental, and it always will be.
Well, that was part of the Great Bacon Experiment, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and that's why I put it in there, because it was part of the Great Bacon Experiment.
Yeah. Which I really have to go and ask people just exactly what happened with that, because people started working on it and then haven't gotten any reports back in. So
can almost hear the capital letters on the Great Bacon Experiment.
It was a Great Bacon Experiment. Yeah.
I started late on that one, so I'm still at the aging process. I'm still waiting on the chocolate, so I got a good another 8 or 10 months left. So, and at some point in there, I'll throw the bacon at it. But I make no promises with that recipe. Buyer beware on that one. It was experimental for a reason.
So how do you handle bacon? How do you handle bacon?
I'm using an extract. I'm cheating.
Yeah, it's cheating.
There's no way I'm putting fat into my mead.
I don't know. You put fat into your mead when you use chocolate, unless you're using defatted chocolate.
True.
Well, I mean, bacon fat. I'm just not doing that. If it goes rancid.
So no lard in your mead, is that what you're saying?
No lard in the mead, right.
Well, put smoke flavoring in. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
I've got some smoke flavoring, but I actually ordered some bacon flavoring. It's natural bacon flavoring, and I'm gonna try that.
Well, there was a brewery that, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but they had a bacon beer. And,
see, that doesn't sound.
It didn't sound good to me, but there are only certain types of beer that I like. Bacon beer isn't one of them. Give me a sour, or a creek, or lambic anytime. But it's being done. Commercially speaking. So I'd be curious. Did they use bacon extract? Because I can't see a way to really get around the whole lard thing.
I wonder if putting the honey in a smoker while you're doing the bacon, maybe.
Well, that was something that came up.
I've heard that. Yeah. That did come up, and I remember that discussion.
Yeah,
and it's like that might help.
Yeah.
Woe betide anybody who gets me a smoker.
Well, yeah, there was somebody.
I've had a leg of mutton before that was smoked in the same room as a whole heap of hams by a big company that does hams commercially, and it tasted very similar to a good bacon ham kind of flavour. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if just smoking it in the same room, smoking the honey in the same room would impart those flavours.
Might, especially if you had something like be kind of slowly stirring the honey and make sure it got imparted into it. Mm-hmm. Or put a hose in it and just kind of bubble it in.
I just say you could.
Blowing smoke through your honey. My God.
Well,
that would That could be interesting.
Use an air stone.
Smoke air stone. Oh my god.
Oh,
That'll do it. Sure.
See, this is why I like making mead. We're a bunch of mad scientists at heart.
For science!
We're like those food chemists that are like dropping strawberries into liquid nitrogen because they shatter so beautifully.
The best part about this I love is I get to say, wonder what'll happen if I try this.
That's what a lot of my mead making is.
It's right up there with here, hold my beer and watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the South that would be prefaced with a hey y'all.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so if you don't put bacon fat in a mead, how do you handle getting nut flavor in? Do you use extracts for that too, or do you actually use nuts?
No, I'm actually using. See, I'm not as scared about putting nut fat or the fat in chocolate. It's just pig fat. It just didn't seem like it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, meat.
It just doesn't sound like it'd be a good idea. With the nuts, I'm crushing them and then roasting them to dry them out as much as possible, and then they're going to sit long enough that any oils left will rise to the surface, and I'll blot them off with a paper towel or rack underneath them.
Oh, okay. So there is a bacon beer, and it's made by Rogue. It's called Rogue Ale.
Yeah, I know Rogue Ale.
Yeah, they make a bacon maple beer.
Actually, that could be a good combination.
Yeah, bacon and maple would be.
Bacon and maple would be. It would have to be a sweeter one to offset the smokiness from the. Unless you're the type that likes a really smoky beer. I've had a couple, and I can only take those in sort of limited quantities.
Yeah. Being overseas for so long, I've kind of gotten spoiled on good beer.
I bet.
Oh. But yeah, the fruits, the mixed fruits, the fruits and spices, and the experimentals are by far the largest categories in this book, because those are the ones I spend most of my time on.
That's good. Do you have a particular yeast that's your favorite that you use for most of these, or? I
don't. I've done, but through trial and error or online research or checking recipes from all around, I've found out the most common yeast used with each ingredient, because different meats will take different yeasts, and I actually develop a lot of these things. I've got a calculator I've developed out now that's actually I can plug in what I want to put in it, and it'll tell me which yeast to use.
Oh, cool!
Because I built a database.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've technological recipe generator, you know.
So now
I basically maxed out Excel. I've told it to do more than it could do. I actually found the limit, you know.
Time for access, huh?
Yeah.
So when you talk about doing the research and stuff, have you actually done like yeast tests to see what the effect of different yeast does on?
I did.
Okay.
I did a yeast test. I took I did it a while back, but I took 6 1-gallon batches, all orange blossom, 6 different. I posted the results on Got Mead actually.
Okay.
Six different strains of yeast. Did 6 identical batches, treated them exactly the same way, and took meticulous notes on everything. So I do have my own favorites for certain things, like. For traditionals, I like the K1, the K1V 1115 and D47. Both turn out really well for me. I like them a lot. The Premier Cuvée almost tasted like a whiskey for a long time. It was vile at first. Then it aged into something quite palatable, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. But it was the results of doing a yeast test when I was early on in starting to make meads was really instructive. I would highly recommend that to anybody. I haven't done a honey test yet, but I want to do that too. Just pick one yeast and do a half a dozen different honeys and make 6 batches of traditional. But I haven't been in one place long enough to do that in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably could have done that while I was here, but I was too busy playing. But yeah, I absolutely did a yeast test. I did record the results. It was very instructive, and I think the K1V was my favorite for traditionals. Okay. For like melomels, anything with fruit in it, it depends on the fruit. You know, a lot of times, whatever your basic wine recipe is, a lot of times that yeast will work, like because different fruits will want a different strain of yeast, but not always.
Have you much experience with RC212?
I've used that quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a nitrogen hog, but it's the color retention.
Sensitive, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I didn't use it I used that one quite a bit when I was in Germany.
Okay.
I didn't use it much in Arizona because it's ridiculously hot there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the RC212, I had really good results with that. As long as you can keep the temperatures right, keep the nutrients up on it. The color retention is just as advertised. I mean, it'll leach it right out of the fruits and put it right in. I got some great meads out of using that. I don't think I used it in the book at all, though.
RC212 or?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, did I? Okay, I didn't remember.
Pretty sure you did.
It might be on a few. It might be on a few of them.
Mainly because I remember looking at it and going, "That fucker." Not you, the yeast.
Oh, it's such a whiny pants yeast, but boy, is it nice if you treat it right.
Yeah, if you treat it right, it's awesome. Yeah, I got trapped in the whole. Wait a minute. Any temperature 1 degree over the temperature that it likes, and forget it.
Yeah.
See, I didn't run into that, but
I've had that turn out too, like that. Yeah, I've had that result with it as well.
Okay.
There was.
I have somehow managed to keep it cool enough, despite not having air conditioning, that it hasn't done anything stupid like that here.
Yeah, well, winter time in Germany, it was not an issue.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I do my brewing in the basement, and in the wintertime it's actually warmer in the basement than it is in the summertime in the basement because we have the heat on in the winter in the basement.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, I don't see using that a lot when I retire because it'll be too hot. But, yeah, it's a good yeast. If you can keep it within its parameters, you'll get really good results with it. Sorry.
Somebody got a drink.
I had to cough. What else? Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of the recipes I actually put in the book, and I've got like so many more of them already that I'm. That was by no means all of my recipes. That was just a selection.
I totally understand.
With compiling them and categorizing for the next projects I'm working on, I'm getting confused.
Confused. Yeah, well, you had some good ones in there. I think we definitely need to fluff out some of the categories in the next books.
Yeah. Well, it's like in the next book. There's not going to be a follow-on to this one. It's going to be a series by category. Like with the first one will probably be traditionals, sizers, and piments because those are single source recipes. It's not a whole lot you can do with them before they get out of that category. So, and there's only so many ways you can say honey, water, and yeast. Oh yeah, here's your traditional honey, water, and yeast. Well, I can do 3 different types basically, and then after that, you're going. All right, different honey. Yeah, let's use this different honey. But everything else.
Well, at that point, you get into different sweetness levels and different sort of styles with the proportion of honey, I suppose.
Yeah, but after you do dry, semi-sweet, and sweet.
Sack.
I'm going to throw sack in there, so I've got 4.
There you go.
It's like, well, then after that, it's kind of just tweaking. So so that's not a book.
Yeah.
But if I do,
to be a chapter, I guess.
With that one, exactly. If I do that one with the 3 different categories, that'll be a good book because I can do a good background on it and throw a bunch in on that. But there'll be a whole book on fruit, and there'll be a whole book on spices, and then there'll be a whole book on fruit and spices because I've got that much to work with. And,
so how do you tend to manage fruit in your batches? Do you use fruit bags? Do you typically do in primary? Do you do in secondary, or does it depend on the recipe?
I don't use fruit bags. I've thought about it, but I just have never tried them. It's just free floating.